Good morning, Coldwell Realty. My name is Gianna Ricci, Regional Vice President for Coldwell Realty Central West. On behalf of the entire leadership team, we are absolutely thrilled to be sitting here with this panel of experts for our May installation of View from the Top. What we have in front of us and what we will be doing over the next 40 minutes, these leaders, these agents are super passionate about. They're beyond impressive with close to 2 billion in sales volume, with an average list to sale ratio between 98 and 103%, bananas. And even more impressive, this group of tenured agents has a combined years in the business of over 100 years. So I'm not going to sit here and take away their thunder, because today it's all about them. But there's one other piece I want to say. Our commitment to our core 4 values. This is it right here. Learning from your peers. Is there anything more valuable? Today, we will coach you to confidence. Without further ado, let me introduce you and welcome Aaron Brown, Chad Gradowski, Kathy Renaud, Sharon Auffet, and Wendy Welsh. And so now, Aaron, I'm going to turn it over to you for just a moment. Name, specialty, marketplace, and don't forget my favorite question in 2 words or less. How do you describe how you go about pricing and positioning in the real estate market? Good morning, Aaron. Take it away.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. Aaron Brown. I'm in Minnesota. I serve the Twin Cities metro region. I have a special interest in the historic homes of St. Paul. St. Paul's kind of known for the largest number of Victorian era homes still in existence. So it's a fun market to serve. I've been in real estate for 7 years, so I'm not contributing a whole lot to the 100-year average span, but 7 years. And I just started at Coldwell a couple months ago in January, which has been fantastic. It's a really great family, and I'm so glad to be with Coldwell. I would say when I'm thinking about pricing, my whole premise is strategy. I try to be very strategic with the way that I price homes.
Aaron, thank you. Chad Gradowski, welcome. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Chad Gradowski from New Buffalo, Michigan office. I also specialize in Indiana and Michigan, primarily vacation, second home markets, primarily buyers from Chicagoland. We're about an hour and a half out of downtown Chicago. One really great thing that everybody should know, in the local coastal magazine nationally, New Buffalo was rated top 10 beach towns in the country for 2023. It's really exciting for us to have that in our, to be able to brag about. This is a really a market that is very weird, very different, unpredictable. And my one word about listing and pricing is realistic. You have to be realistic, but be ready for the unpredictable market and pricing too. So that's my word of the day.
Thanks, Chad. Kathy, welcome. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you. I've been licensed 26 years and I serve the greater St. Louis area, the metro area. And I told Gianna that I couldn't really do one word. So I did a hyphenated word, intentional detail. I believe that if you are intentional from the beginning and you're taking care of all the minute details that come into play when you're considering pricing, kind of helps you avoid issues in the end, hopefully, or throughout. Benjamin Franklin said an ounce of prevention, we all know that, is worth a pound of cure. So it's better to take precautions and price properly than suffer consequences later, of course, for both us and the client.
Thank you, Kathy. And now let's welcome Sharon Auffet. Welcome, Sharon.
Hi, I'm Sharon Auffet, and I'm in the South Lake, Texas area. And I've been in the business for 40 years. It's a long time. And I am also a real estate appraiser. as well. I don't actively do appraisals, but I have that in my expertise. And I guess my one word, which is two words, is more or less pricing. You need to be very careful when you do this. There's a lot of emotions involved, and if you use your data, it takes the emotions out of it, and it helps to get on a level playing field.
Thanks, Sharon. And Wendy, good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Wendy Welsh. I am located just north of the Houston area in the Lake Conroe, Montgomery County area. I started my career off as an appraiser also, did that for many years, opened a brokerage. About 5 years ago, Coldwell Banker purchased my brokerage. And so now I'm here as an independent broker or an independent agent, just loving life. So my two words are honest communication, because when you're pricing, it's you and your client. So you just have to be honest and get things worked out.
Thanks so much, Wendy. So one of the things that was most impressive to me as I sat and spoke to the panel members was the consistency about how they went about this. In saying that, they do have some different business practices. And so we kind of want to start this off at the beginning. And what I mean by that is how do you remain a student of the market with a market that is fluctuating because of the different market dynamics that are taking place in 2003? Oh my goodness, 2023. I'm going to go ahead and who would like to jump in on that one?
I can.
I will. Well, go ahead, Aaron.
I talk about this a lot with my sellers, is we have to stay responsive to the data. So I will stay on top of the data. I will stay on top of the competition. I think we can get a lot of information if you just closely watch the data. So, I had this listing. We have a coming soon program here where we can go on the market coming soon. We can't have a showing, but we can start advertising the property. So I go coming soon, always on a Monday. I go live on the market on a Thursday. The showings were not coming in. And so I told our sellers we're going to reduce by $50,000 before we even went live on the market. We reduced by $50,000. We got multiple offers and got back to the price where we were going to start. So I think it's just staying really responsive to the data.
Dad, you wanted to opine?
Yes, I think that you need to know your market like the back of your hand. So looking at the new listings that are coming in and talking to your fellow realtors, finding out how many offers they are getting on these listings that just hit the market. For example, there was a listing for $500,000, and within a week we got 18 offers. And it went probably about 15% over asking. So then what you need to do is figure out how many clients do I have in that area. It's a very hot area, good beaches, good walkable beaches in that area. Talk to all your clients, sellers, and say, look, if you're thinking about selling, this is the time to get in on this hot market.
Awesome, Chad. Thank you. I want to move on to another question. And Kathy, I'm going to have you open up this one and help us understand the typical experience once you've secured that appointment. What happens next in terms of how you get ready and what exactly are you bringing into that listing presentation?
Well, we do a lot of research, of course, on the area locally. We have a lot of different municipal inspections, so we make sure that all the T's are crossed and the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and make sure we have everything correct when we go in. There's nothing worse than missing a small detail that could become a big detail in the client's eyes. But I like to layer the listing. Sometimes the subdivision I live in has 480 homes. We never need to go outside that subdivision if we were to get comps. But I had one recently, I was explaining earlier this week, where it was a 2-story in a good school district, but it was much larger than the other 2 stories. I was on a cul-de-sac, it had a premium lot. It had a 3-car garage. Everyone else had a 2. It also had a pool. So it was kind of, outshining its own neighborhood. So I layered the listing. So yes, we still had to look at the neighborhood. That's a subdivision. I don't know about the other areas, but most of our markets here locally in this region have subdivisions or complexes. And so we did that research. So I had a section for that. And then we layered it. I went to another section and I did surrounding radius 2 stories that were in the same square foot, which was larger. I had a third category, which was going to be 3-car garages. And I went back and looked in that subdivision. It was about 25 years old. Only 3 homes had ever traded hands that had 3-car garage. So I knew that we had something special here. And then lastly, I did a 4th layer, which included pools, radius pools, that I had to kind of look at ranches and other styles, but it was a very comprehensive market analysis. And I believe that I snagged the listing on the first visit. So I call that layering. I also talk to my clients. It's a little elementary. It sounds a little simplistic, but it's amazing based on their ages, how I kind of see the lights come on. So I actually use the terminology like a DNA medical test of siblings and cousins. So in this case, I told this seller, hey, here's your neighborhood. If this was a DNA test, this is your siblings. These are your siblings. You should match more closely with them than outside. But in reality, in this example, the other 3 sections probably were a closer DNA match than the neighborhood. And so I called them cousins. And so it was kind of fun. It's lighthearted. Of course, it wouldn't work maybe for someone way more intelligent than me, but it's kind of a fun way, and it's a little bit of banter. And then every now and then throughout the listing, I'll say, hey, remember one of those cousins? We're going to go back and see what they did, that type of thing. So just a thought. The other thing that came to my mind when Chad was finishing up, you know, I have more listings than many other agents in the company, and I get calls. You should feel especially friendly with your other CBG agents, but I get calls from agents that don't have as many listings as I do. Aaron, you made a good point. You reach out to others, but they'll just call and say, hey, you just had that listing. What kind of traffic? They're not asking for specifics that we may not be able to legally provide, but kudos to them for calling to find out, because I had one recently. It was on a golf course and the traffic was much slower than I had thought it would be. And I was able to share that with the agent, and I think they adjusted their price accordingly.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Sharon or Wendy, do you want to opine anything to add to that?
Well, whenever I'm going to do the listing appointment, I do use the Moxie program and all the data that you can put in there. It kind of puts it in a nice little package that the seller can understand very well. I think having the ability to do the amenities adjustments in there and help the seller to understand the differences between their property and the property that has sold or is also on the market. And then another thing that is really big that you need to look at is days on market right now. Days on market is going to be your key in pricing. I try to do a range of pricing for my seller. That way, when I go in, if I haven't been in the house before, I can either narrow down to the lower price or go to the higher price, depending on what they've done to the house too as well. A lot of times the sellers will say, oh, well, I've updated my house and done all the bells and whistles, and you get there and maybe they painted and put new carpet in, and that's about it. So that's kind of how I go about it.
Thank you, Sharon. Wendy?
Absolutely. I also do the market analysis. I used our boards, CMA, but have used Moxie quite a bit myself. Makes a great presentation when you go in. You have all the information you need, but you know, I definitely highly recommend having that so that when you walk in, you are very knowledgeable. I also take a lot of our brochures and stuff from Listing Concierge. When you're walking in with that very much makes you look, you know, it makes us stand out here. It's a great program. So going in with that ammunition is wonderful for grabbing the listings.
Anyone else want to add on before we move on to our next question?
Yeah, if I may, I think
Sure.
it's really important to try to get into the house beforehand. Being in the second home market, you just never know how the sellers are maintaining their home. Maybe they're there like 2 weekends a month. So I like to visit the house beforehand. I have a pocket of great construction workers that can paint, touch things up, because I think a lot of brokers will put something on the market before it's ready. And I think it's really important to get the price that you want, is that the house is ready and show condition, no cracks, no stains, and what have you. So it's really important, especially in the second home market, to have it ready for sale.
I was just going to mention, following up on Wendy's comments about bringing brochures, I always bring a sample of my marketing. I do leave a lot of leave behinds. I know that there's a lot of markets where they're doing just virtual now, but I also bring, if I specialize in that zip code, I'll actually bring an MLS printout of my sales in that zip code the last 2 or 3 years, or that subdivision. So if you actually bring it, of course, if you're not specialized where you own the market in that zip code or neighborhood, then you might just bring something that shows your breadth of your business. I go from, east to west to north to south, and you could maybe bring something from the MLS that shows your range.
Anyone else want to opine before we move on to another question?
Well, I'll add one more thing.
Sure, please do.
Lots of times we will also pull all the information about the city and print it out in a nice little booklet, especially if you're expecting this house to go to someone that's coming in from out of state. And if you show that to the seller that you really understand what their city is about and what they have to offer, sometimes that'll help you win the listing too.
Thanks, Sharon. Aaron, I kind of cut you off there. Sorry.
Well, no, that's okay. I'll go fast. So I try to really over prepare, and I have everything. So I've got the brochures. I've got my laptop that has every single comp. I've got all this data. But if I don't know the seller, the first thing I try to do is try to determine what the most important thing is for that seller. What's their personality type like? Are they going to want to sit down for 2 hours and look at all this information? Or do they just want me to get my stager in and get the house ready and get it on the market? So I try to have as much ready as I can, and then just use what I need to in order to land the listing. And I think sellers appreciate that. They don't want to go through all the data if they're not a data person. They just want to know where we're going to price the home. So.
And again, that's where I see the consistency is the level of preparation that you all bring to the table. That is experienced and tenured as you all are. The fact that you instinctually know the pulse and the vibe of the market, you still prepare for it. And it just shows the commitment. So once you've obtained the listing, right, you're all talking about being prepared. But what exactly, what's the follow-up look like? The communication component to it. How is that determined and dictated? Who wants to
I'll
jump
start
up
on
there?
that one.
Please.
So I know for us, communication is the #1 gripe here for most sellers. So we just ask them. I mean, there's some people that want to be, called or emailed or text once a week, twice a week, every other week, but we ask them, and then that way you're giving them what they want. And there's so much information that you can relay, whether it's their preference is a text, you can give them all that any way they prefer. So definitely, I think just asking them is the best way to do that.
If I may, I agree. I call real estate a contact sport. It's a contact with sellers and the buyers. Because if you're not contacting both sides, you're not going to be successful. So you just need to find out if they want emails, how they want to be contacted versus texting or what have you. Let's face it, the reason why I'm a big lister, because I know I have that seller focused on me for like 6 months. So that's great. So it's very, very important. And I do get a lot of listings in our area from other realtors that will not answer their phone. So, let's face it, it's a contact sport.
Mm-hmm. Aaron had mentioned earlier about being over-prepared, bringing data that he may not use. Much of it can be recycled, and I kind of have packets that I use and have as templates. But a good term for that, Aaron, is reading the room. And so that's one thing that my temperament is detailed, but I have to, in a sense, be a little bit like a chameleon. We have to read the room. And even though I know that information is good and it's important, if they're not where they can hear it or receive it, then sometimes you just kind of have to change gears and go a different route. And so being over prepared, using what you need as you need it, if you need it, is a very good principle. We also, once we get the listing, we get started, man, we work in on paperwork right away. We not only the disclosures, information, support docs for any updates. I'm really big on improvements lists. I have an Excel template. Many sellers can fill it out themselves. I just had someone today that emailed me back at 5 a.m. this morning, and original owner, 50 years. He had something from 1981 he did there. I loved it. It was relevant because it shows how he's touched this house. He's a former engineer. He loved my detail, by the way. Touched this house year after year, small, big, in between. He had labels of models for appliances. I am putting that out there, and it's going to really tell people that this is a spectacular house they're inheriting. But having that improvement list is huge to support, I think, with appraisal comps, with buyers if they're a little bit on the fence, and just to kind of show the history of that house. So it's great to do that. We type it for our sellers that don't have that capability. But that's probably one of the biggest tools I can suggest to any agent. Get documentation on how that house has been lovingly touched over the years.
And I'll say one thing about communicating with sellers after you get the listing. You have to realize that, yeah, you're busy. You may be juggling 10 to 15 listings or buyers or whatever, but they're just one person and they want to be your top number one. So you do have to communicate with them on a reasonably manner, especially maybe every 2 or 3 days at the most, so that they feel like you're handling them, that you are interested in their listing and you're working for them.
I think Sharon's exactly right. When people have their home on the market, that is basically the only thing they think about until they accept an offer. So maximum 2 days. Every time there's a showing, anytime there's a competitive property that comes on the market, any reason to reach out, you reach out.
Just kind of piggybacking and throwing this out there. So back in my selling days, one of my biggest frustrations was when someone would not call back with feedback. So could one of you speak to best practices? Like, how do you track down that feedback when sometimes it's hard to come by, knowing how important it is and knowing that, in essence, not getting feedback is the message. There is a message within that, but understanding that the client doesn't always understand that. So do you have a best practice around how you actually obtain it?
Well, first thing I do is text the agent. I feel like sometimes they might be busy and they just haven't had a chance to get that feedback out. And then I put in there, you know, I want the good, bad, and the ugly. It's okay to give us the true story. And then after that, if I don't get anything from a text, then I'll pick up the phone and call.
Yeah,
I would agree that that's a pet peeve of mine, that if people not using turn signals. It's so easy to give a 10-second feedback, you know, so we could push our showing time to ask for the feedback several times. And then we could also text and call as well. But it's just so easy just to do a 10-second text. And it's really a shame that some realtors do not do that.
I think the lesson in there to all of the individuals sitting on the call is take the 10 seconds and respond to feedback, because listing agents, we're all going to be listing agents at some point in time, and it's very much appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about something that was an interesting, as I spoke to all of you, a lot of really cool, interesting answers. And, you know, this is around that practice of buying a listing, otherwise known as taking the overpriced listing. And I'd love to hear, because we're not talking about the Great Recession here. We're talking about a unique market. And so I think it would be really beneficial for the audience to hear kind of what are you living today, because it's a different market. Why don't we start with Sharon and we'll go from there.
Well, I had the experience about a couple of weeks ago. We put a property on the market, even though I knew it was overpriced by at least 10 to 15,000. And I told the seller at the listing, I said, we'll take this, but if we don't get any response within a week or to 10 days, then you're going to have to, look at that pricing a little bit better. Amazingly enough, we put it on the market on a Thursday. And then by Tuesday, we had only had 2 showings, and the seller contacted me instead and said, okay, let's lower the price. So I think you just have to be upfront with the seller. You can take an overpriced listing, but you just got to really educate them on where they are in the market and what might happen to them if you do.
Aaron, can I have you go next, please?
Yeah, I'll take a slightly overpriced listing, but other than that, I've decided not to. So I remember the exact property where I decided that was going to be my practice. This condo that I told them it was overpriced. I said, we have to paint and we have to stage. They didn't listen to me on any of it. So bit by bit would reduce the price. They finally painted, they never staged. I had the place photographed 3 different times. And then they cancel and they list with a realtor who lives in the building. They reduce the price, they painted, and they staged, and it sold. So I just decided for myself then, I wasted really all of that money. I'm not going to take, if a seller won't listen to me, I'm not going to take the listing. And what that's left me with is really, really, really great sellers. They want their house to sell. They will do anything that I say in order to get the house to sell. And it's really changed my business.
Chad?
So with this unpredictable market and low inventory, I will take an overpriced listing, but it has to be no higher than about 10%. I have seen other agents, and I look every morning at our hot sheets, and all you see is price reduced, price reduced, price reduced. So I do have in my listing agreement that if we do not get an offer in the first 30 days, then we go back to my price, and you write that in to the listing agreement. Again, it's an unpredictable time. I had a property last year for $745,000. We didn't get our best offer was $620,000. She wanted to relist it for the same price this year. And I said, I don't think it's a good idea. She went with another broker. It's under contract in the first 2 days. Again, unpredictable market. Sometimes you take an overpriced listing because of low inventory.
Wendy?
So, and we run across that too, where I have had to take an overpriced listing. Again, it's that honest communication. You go up front, you tell them you think it's overpriced, we'll give it a shot. I put it in, my listing agreement also, or have a good conversation with them. If we don't have the activity we need, we know it's overpriced because you can see. So, and then we do a price reduction. So yeah, I definitely think with this market right now where we're at that, there are times where you have to.
And Kathy, we'd love to hear from you as well.
I like to call this market transitioning. It certainly has an unpredictable facet to it. And, after 26 years, there's still times that I cannot tell if I take a listing that's overpriced, if it's going to turn and go under contract. Or I had one last year, it never did sell. It was a lot of effort. And so that was in my 25th year in the business. So even those of us that have more listings than a few in a year, it's a difficult topic. And so I would say have a gentle conversation with your sellers. We're concerned that if we push that topic too much, we may lose the listing. They interpret that as we're not on board. We don't believe in them or their house. So you have a gentle conversation, but ultimately, to me, it comes down to integrity. If I really feel that that is not a wise decision, I have to figure out a way to convey that to them in a manner that they may be able to receive it, because I think we owe it to our sellers. If we have a fiduciary responsibility with our clients, then we owe a conversation in some way, shape, or form. I used to do write-ins to the listing agreement. Honestly, Chad, I haven't done one since before COVID, but I suspect we may be doing a little bit more of that. But it's tough even for us guys. So, there's not a simple answer, and you've got some of the best in the business here, and it's still not an easy process.
And if I may say real quick, bring a stack when you go to your listing presentation. Bring a stack of listings that have been reduced. Show the sellers, look, we're here to price and position your property correctly. If you don't, you're going to be sitting on the market for 90, 120 days, etc.
I think one of the key takeaways from this segment right here is that vulnerability piece that Kathy shared, that as tenured as you all can be, as experienced as you can be, we keep growing and learning in this industry because it keeps changing and evolving. So thank you for being candid with that. So it sounds like across the board, you are all in some way, shape, or form setting the proper expectations as you go into that listing appointment. While you're either including it into the listing agreement, you are at the very least saying, we're going to discuss where we're going to position your home if it doesn't trade within a certain period of time. Just as a rule of thumb, can we just go around the group and, just to reiterate, what is that number of days? What's that sweet spot for you where you just know instinctually you got to go, it's got to come down? Again, I'm just going to kind of go around, Robin, the way that I see you all. So I'm going to start with Sharon again.
Usually 10 days. I try not to go any more than 10 days before we have that conversation to drop the price. And by the way, on that example I gave you earlier, we did get a contract on it within 3 days after we lowered the price. So
the market speaks loudly.
It does.
Aaron.
Like I said, I usually go on the market on a Thursday, and so I know by Sunday.
Okay, awesome. Chad?
In the second home market, people coming up for the weekends, usually we do about 21 days.
Okay.
For a reduction.
Wendy?
We're about 2 weeks.
Okay, and Kathy?
I would agree with the 2 weeks, 15 days. I like to get 2 weekends under our belt. It's hard to voice, but there's a group of buyers out there that they don't want to act the first weekend. They're afraid of getting swept into that over competitive market. I've heard it said by agents that call me, they just don't want to do it this weekend. They want to see if you're there next week. That doesn't mean they're going to lowball. They want to have some control. So I like to wait that second weekend.
Okay. And kind of going back to the beginning, in terms of just a generality, what's a telltale sign? Sounds like a simple question, but what's a telltale sign the property is overpriced once it's on the market?
It's absolutely traffic. Traffic or not.
I agree. It's traffic and no offers.
And so can someone kind of elaborate a little bit on that situation, that uncomfortable feeling when you have 35 showings and you don't get an offer? What's your talk track with your seller?
If I may, the buyers are speaking very, very loudly to us. They are shouting to us that our house is not priced correctly and positioned correctly. So we need to make that change. And then again, that does go sometimes with repositioning it in that time frame in the listing agreement if we didn't get an offer in the first 21 to 30 days. So they're actually yelling at us. The market is shouting at us.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where you've got to get that feedback from the agent one way or another so that you can communicate that to your seller.
Yes.
Aaron, Kathy, anything else?
I think that several things can be telltale signs. We have some awesome reports, our home-based insight reports. I use those greatly, which show online traffic on some of the top sites. And when you're getting obscenely high traffic with lower than you expected foot traffic, that's a telltale sign. When you're getting great traffic, foot traffic, lots of people through, and you're not getting contracts or competitive contracts, that's a telltale sign. So it could be either, where we're shut out or where it's very aggressive, but those certainly, most sellers right now, I believe, are fairly responsive to that. And for only once, maybe I'd like to thank the media, because I feel like in 2021, we just were like, would you guys quit talking about this, this market? There was so much media that I say this very respectfully, but I believe it almost cultivated a greedy spirit in sellers, and that the media was just like, gosh, it's crazy. Well, now the media is painting the market in many cases as weaker than it really is. I like to say transitioning. So now I'm thanking them a little bit, because most of our sellers, I believe, are primed and pumped, and they're a little more prepared to hear our voices than they might have been in 21.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy. So I've got another question for you. And then after that question, I just want to let the audience know that we're going to go ahead and start answering some of those questions in the chat. So I will scroll through and read them aloud. So here's it. Chad also, referred to the market. I remember reading an article recently that described the market as weird. I've read weird, unpredictable, all sorts of things. So in a normalized market, we typically see a % of appreciation or depreciation. It's something that we can measure, that we can say it's going up 10% or it's depreciating by 1.5% per month. And that can be directly tied to a market. But so now we've got, given the fluctuation in interest rates and the low inventory, I think the biggest thing that, I'm curious about also is just how do you stay ahead of it all while simultaneously setting the right expectations? How do you find that balance when it is tricky? And that kind of ties into mindset. And so, like, if you want to opine on that, I'm going to actually reverse the order now, and I'm going to start with Kathy.
I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. I've been married 44 years. I'm blessed with 6 kids and 10 grandkids. So I've got a lot of life experience, but there's a lot of being true to yourself, find out who you are, be who you are, and present that. But I would say that it does seem like it's a fish out of water. It's just flipping and flapping, and it's really hard to tell. A little commercial for Coldwell Banker. I'm so grateful. We're in a company that has the best training. We have tools, we have training, we have people we can go to. There's things that I don't have time to go out and learn because of my life demands and my business demands, and they bring it to me. I am so grateful that we have these tools. It's more than just a broker, but I've had the same broker, the same office, the same company for all 26 years. So nonetheless, if I'm here 26 years later, I'll still be here if CB is.
Thank you, Kathy. Immense gratitude there. That was not something that was like rehearsed ahead of time. So appreciate the shout out to CB. Wendy.
So I think with the way the market is, you've just got to, research it all. You're researching the solds, which is your past history, look at the pendings, things that are sold, and then the active. So there's so many things to look at so that you can bring them the information for our crazy market. So, there's a lot to consider, but you've got to communicate that and be willing to do that to your buyers and sellers. And I hope I got the question right. I got on something else listening to Kathy, so I hope that was correct.
It's all good. As I said, we're sitting in my dining room and we're having a casual chat. It's all good. Chad?
So you have to keep that integrity and honesty. That's all we have in our business and as realtors. And you have to figure out what the seller's needs and wants are. Like, are they relocating? Do they want to be out in 90 days? What are their needs and wants? But pricing and positioning right now is a very interesting time. And a lot of realtors are cutting their commissions. And I'm not a firm believer in that. I want to show my worth, in my pricing and positioning. And I always say, if you want to work with monkeys, you're going to be paying peanuts. So it's really important that you show all realtors out there, you show your integrity and you show your worth. So, and it's all, again, a tricky market right now, for sure.
Thank you, Chad. Aaron?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, I've been in the business for just 7 years. So I feel like it's been, every year has been completely different in those 7 years.
Yeah.
So in one way, I guess I'm kind of grateful for that, because I've never gotten comfortable knowing things kind of one way. Every year is weird. So I just try to really stay abreast on what are the markets doing? What does the data say? But one thing that I've learned is to really rely on those who have been in the business for a long time. So I am constantly calling up agents whom I trust, throwing ideas around, like saying, okay, this listing isn't selling, but all the data says it's priced right. What do you think is going on? Having them take a look. So I think if we can rely on those support systems that we have, we're constantly learning, and then we can convey that to our sellers too, to give them some peace of mind.
Thank you, Aaron. And Sharon?
I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what Kathy was saying, that especially for the new agents out there, they need to realize that we have a lot of information in Coldwell Banker that will help you be successful. And like I said, Moxie was one of them. Market Quest is great. If you don't know the market, that's a good thing to do. You can go in there and play with Market Quest, and you can find out what's happening in each one of the cities that you're working in, down to the zip code or to the county or whatever. But just get all the data that you can get. Daily, I always have my hot sheets that I look at per city. Every morning, I'll look through those and see, well, who's got more listings coming up, and which ones have reduced price, and the expireds too. I don't actively go out and try to get expireds or canceled, but it's a good thing for a new agent if they want to do that too.
Thank you for that, Sharon. So I'm going to toss it over. We'll take a look at the chat now. There's a couple of things that came up. I know Aaron responded. There was a question about staging, and Aaron's response was, it comes up naturally as we walk through the home. I offer a consult as part of my marketing strategy. If for some reason we don't get to answer your question, we will get the responses from our panelists, and I will go ahead and combine them in an email. From Karen Grant to Sharon, from where do you pull information for your booklet for out-of-towners? Are you talking about things to do or stats?
Stats and things to do, but a lot of it is things to do, like dog parks are a big thing for people. There's title companies, Independence Title in our area. They provide that information for us. All we have to do is go to their website and pull it up. It makes it look like we're doing all the work and getting the information, but they have really helped us out a lot.
Hey, I think we're going to be able to get possibly two more. From Judy Shields, when you don't get the listing and the method for letting you know is a dear person email, do you reach back out to determine the whys and what fors? Chad, you want to jump in on this? I know we talked about this specifically.
Yes, I just had this conversation with a client of mine last night. I did not get the listing. I was number 2, which is still a silver medal in the Olympics, but it's the hero or zero. I was a 0, correct? So I wanted to talk to that seller, and I asked why, and I appreciate them being very straightforward. They didn't go with me because I had another listing in the same development. And I was like, that's absurd, because I could work those 2 listings off each other. They're all different. So it's just really interesting. Even after doing this for 24 years, you still don't always win, but it's good to learn. It's a learning process why you didn't get that listing. And I did not agree with the seller, but it happens.
All righty, so we are going to take one more question here, and then we're at time. Let's see, we've got some kudos kudos, don't take the overpriced listing. Sellers can make your life hell. Thank you for that. Please share your experience with appraisal addendum, especially for those of you that have dealt with the appraisal addendum. Does anybody want to chime in on that real quick?
Well, it's great if you've got a listing and you have a buyer's agent that comes in with the appraisal addendum where they waived the appraisal. But as a buyer in our market right now, we haven't seen that complete appraisal waiver. I guess that's my experience.
Sorry about that. That was my little buzzer telling me we were on time. So we do have some questions that need to be responded to. I will work with the team and we'll put some answers in the chat. I want to thank this absolutely amazing panel of experts that we were so blessed and are grateful to have join us this morning. The last thing I wanted to remind everyone of is on June 20th, Andy Goodman will be hosting a very similar view from the top. The conversation will be about working smarter. So mark your calendars, June 20th, Andy Goodman. So for now, I want to thank you all for being here, and I hope you have an absolutely superb day. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.